Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gibson. We're back for episode 8 with Bobbi. We're taking her on a journey through her life. We're looking at the abusive circumstances, not only in which she's been involved, but some that she's caused herself. We're looking at opportunities to find out what really happened, not what we have massaged our brains and our hearts to believe that occurred in order to break the cycle of abuse, which she's doing a great job at herself. Self-actualization is a very difficult process. So we have to be aware, but also more vigilant than aware. Like we have to maintain our target on what our objectives are with people and how to get them to a point where they can start utilizing that history of theirs in order to better create better outcomes for their lives. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Bobbi and we're going to find out how our holiday season went. Bobbi, how are you?
Hello, hello.
Good seeing you. Maybe you should speak up just a little bit, but with that being said, how was your holidays? How did they go?
It was very busy, and I had my daughter staying with me for some time since the end of May,
Okay.
and her and her children ended up leaving and going to stay with my oldest daughter, um, over some cleanliness habits.
Some cleanliness habits. So
Yes,
so
or
you're saying that
unscripted.
one of your daughters, one of your older daughters, and her name is
Jasmine.
Jazz. Okay, so Jasmine decided to leave. I guess it was a mutual thing between you and Jasmine to get her out of the home, out of your home, into another home because she did not tidy up behind herself.
Yeah, yeah. She just there was some things that was happening with her. She, I mean, her and 5 kids, that's a lot. And that's sorry.
No.
That's a lot for one room, but she did have a quite a big room.
Okay.
And you know, just when you all only have that responsibility, I don't feel that it's too much to make sure that things are picked up and respect the rules of the house, which is no food past the couch. We have it, you got your living room and your kitchen, and then we have like a table into the living room area.
Hmm.
But then moving forward, it's like a sectional, so you don't go take food past the line of the couch or the door. And
That sounds very, very functional and it makes sense.
yeah,
So was that violated, that principle?
several times. She never really wanted me in her room, so when I did go in there, it was either to get her up, or the kids were needing me or whatever when she went to work. And I began to notice just a lot of uh, uncleanliness, and I addressed it, and nothing happened. And then I addressed it, nothing happened. And then her one oldest daughter started kind of being a little bit disrespectful in her tone of voice and things that was going on. Um, and I didn't address my granddaughter because it was an adult conversation. So when I had the conversation with Jasmine, it was well received. And then the behavior continued. And so then I addressed my granddaughter on it, and she was like, hey, don't talk to my daughter like that. And I'm like, listen, I've addressed you with it. It hasn't changed. And so, with the
Are
other
you
two,
expressing the PG version of what happened? Or,
yes.
okay. I mean, you can go a little R-rated on this particular show. So you can go ahead and do that just so people are filled in. Sometimes, familiarity breeds contentment. Everyone's content with familiarity until they're not. And then the more familiar you become with someone, the more contempt you'll find with that person. And that
So,
kind of behavior occurs.
so it was stacks and stacks of dirty laundry just by the mounds. And I offered, like, hey, can you throw me out some laundry? I'll do your laundry a couple loads tonight while you're at work. And she would tell her kids they couldn't come out of the room, which I felt that was borderline abuse. And so I would let them out, or try to maintain some kind of, if it was almost like even if they needed help they couldn't call for me. or, she was just like that protective over her kids from when I was in Wisconsin. And my older son was, she said, he was being mean to her kids and being mean to the dogs. And so I'm thinking that that's the whole reason why. And it wasn't. She just didn't want anybody to see how she was living. And the truth of the matter is that every house that she's had wasn't clean.
When you
And
were in Wisconsin, you were in the facility, the
yeah, yeah,
the prison in Wisconsin. So while you're there and this behavior is happening with your daughter, you're unbeknownst to you, of course. There had been other times you just said that she has experienced the same type of behavior in every household she's been involved with her children.
yeah, whether it been her own or with someone else.
Okay.
And reflecting back, that her and my oldest daughter went through the most with me when I was in my addiction, into my hustling, into my street life, into everything. And I paid for everything to get taken care of. Paid for the rooms to get clean, the laundry to get done. They didn't have any responsibility but nothing. Watch TV and
Mhm.
kind of do nothing. And
Do you
so
find that
I,
to be a mistake now?
oh, big one, a very big one.
Yeah, it is. How can you
Um,
tell somebody to do something they don't have any experience understanding or dealing with? That's a big
no, and
question.
I can remember going to prison and her starting her monthly the same day that I left for prison. So she didn't, and it was at an earlier age than most. And I didn't get to explain to her how to take care of herself, or I didn't get to tell her any of that. And so then therefore she didn't know. And then my oldest daughter would talk about, Mom, I don't know what's going on with Jasmine. She's throwing her pads up under the sink. And so, I didn't have the talks with her that my grandmother had with me.
Well,
So
there's a thing called a declination. Um, Really, and when you're reading a map, there's a thing called a declination constant. And that constant is that perhaps sometimes when you're in one part of the world, your constant may be off a few degrees. So if you're looking at 360, you may be actually at a degree of maybe 250, not, I mean, 355 or 357. So when you're going straight, you're really doing this instead of going straight. And
right,
so you have to adjust for the declination constant on maps so you can make sure you figure out what the declination constant is for the area you're in, and you apply that to whatever direction on the map you want to go. That way you stay true to the map. These are all paper maps, old school skills.
I got a paper map in my car.
Well, you do that, and that's how you stay on point. You just adjust for the declination. If it's a 3% declination constant, you subtract 3 degree declination constant, you subtract 3 degrees or add 3 degrees, depending upon what the constant is. So you have that, the declination constant. In life, if that course isn't corrected, that declination constant isn't corrected. Like let's say your daughter's declination was 1, but over the years you're not being there. She separates from you like this: 1 degree, 1 degree next year, 1 more degree, 1 more degree. And the longer you're away, the wider that constant become, or the area covered has come. So she's off her path that she would have been on with you had you been there. So that declination constant in your life, it needs to be adjusted with each person. It is really not her fault what she did and how she conducts herself. What is her fault is now that she knows that it's wrong and can see that that pattern of that period of time, every household she's been in, she's suffered the same consequence. That by itself means that there's some work you have to do with her to bring that constant back on to 0, even though she's an adult and she has 5 kids. You know, it's a very difficult task to have 9 children in one home and 2 adults. It has to be held there. If there's anyone else there, then that's even worse. So, but you seem to be doing all you can to manage it. Do you find your management techniques that you're using are working?
Sometimes and sometimes not. I sometimes and sometimes not. I try to everybody's schedules is a little bit different. So that works the best, I think. And she works third shift. So, the kids usually would go, she would have her kids in bed by 8, and then they would get up and go to school. And so really the evenings is when it was most chaotic. And she got a Y membership. So then she filled her time up like from 4 to when she went to work. She'd take them to the Y or take them to the library, or, fill them out, get their exercise and get their energy out. But she's got a couple too that, are very energetic due to circumstances that she went through that I did not know she was going through. She never told me. She's very distant with me still. And she would tell me bits and pieces, but I did not know that with one of my granddaughters, the father of that child had her cooking dope, cocaine, while she was pregnant with the baby. And that in itself, I feel, has affected that child in behavioral ways. I don't know for sure, but when she told me that, it was just like my mind just started adding up dots.
You don't have to share someone else's business online. You don't.
Yeah.
But if there is something, I'm assuming that it's something to do with her children.
Well, and I only say that because with mine, before I knew I was pregnant, I did the same thing. I used cocaine. So although I wasn't cooking it or inhaling it, or it was probably still going in her pores, or, and so then I have a set of twins that have some behavioral issues
I understand.
and had some as smaller children that were very similar to her. And as much as she says she isn't like me, in all reality, she has picked up some of my.
As I'm not an expert in child behavior, but I am an expert on the human existence and condition. I think that it's important that you recognize when you're admonishing or chastising your older daughter, or making her leave your home, or coming to that we have to work backwards from where she is back to where she was with her, in order to get her to align herself with that declination constant. In order to do that, I think it's very important that that is the way you find peace with her. And that'll be a technique that when she sees it works with her and you, that she'll be able to share with her children to help them, because her declination constant is just as off. And not to treat everyone like they're a map, but we all are just maps of our own path and existence and journey and where we are. And if we treat our life like a map, and we fork our roads, and we know which way to go, and we make those micro decisions and those larger decisions as we get better at it from a spontaneous right action point of view, that it'll help realign things once they've gone so long without alignment. That's what I'm trying to make clear. And I know that must have frustrated you over the holidays to have to do that during this time frame.
Yeah, it was. It has been, and she still hasn't let her kids get the gifts that I got for them. So
yeah, so there's some animosity there, a lot of animosity for that. Principled animosity is based on. I bet she says things like, "You never did this for me, and you never was there for me," and that kind of thing. And without her having that to fall back on, she would be a much more amenable human being to be in your household, to do all the things that necessarily she would have to do. But she has that stigma that's been placed on her from early on in life, and being abandoned, so to speak, when you're not there, because when you're gone for a long time, you're not there, and there's no communication really, or no guidance. That's an issue of abandonment. That's very important that you understand. But secondly, and more important to that, is they have to make up the rules as they go along. And they won't be consistent with your rules, because you're not there. So I have to give you blame for that. But since you're doing something about it, you're actually doing something. It's only when you accept the blame that you can actually make what you're doing about it purposeful and make it useful in the lives of the people around you, not better or worse. I think that's a very odd franchise we use in society to make everybody, get a trophy at the end of a sports event instead of the winners getting a trophy for being useful and the losers not getting one for not being useful. Kind of. But when you look at in terms of good or bad of children, you'll always make mistakes. You have to look in what's useful and what's useless in their lives and kind of help them to extricate and weed themselves every now and then, their prairie, if you will. Make them weed out all those different areas of their prairie. If you're not there, you can't tend to your prairie or the lives of the people you most care about. So it is your fault, Bob.
Yeah.
Accept that. And I like the fact that you get it. Most people have thin skin and don't understand that. And then when you're speaking with her, you're just as frustrated as they are because you know that you have some input that's constructive and that works. But they won't take it. They won't take that advice or that guidance and move with that. And that's also your fault because the lack of presence did that. It opened that divide where you can't tell me what to do. You weren't here for me, and da da da. They can always say that.
To my mom. I did that to my mom.
Exactly. So it's a cycle, and the only person who can break that cycle is you.
Yeah.
Not the children, not your mom. When you decide that it's dysfunctional, when you decide that it's useless in not only your life, but their lives as well, and you make those changes as you're doing now, and it's not easy.
It's not.
And this is not tough love. It's not. You can only tolerate so much, or it'll just continue. If you tell somebody, don't pick up that hot skillet, and every time they just pick up that hot skillet, soon enough, they're going to have calluses and burns on their hands so bad that it's going to be untenable. It's going to be an issue where they can't find any remedy for the destruction of their hands. So that's what they're doing. They're just burning themselves over and over and over and over with everything you say and do. Maybe not everything, but things that you require for people to maintain presence in your household. Do you think you made the right decision?
I do. I do.
Why? Give me principled reasons why you believe you made the right decision.
If I wouldn't have made the decision, it would still be going on.
One.
That's first and foremost.
Yes.
Secondly, I was able to discuss with her, maybe not in the best of terms, but cleanliness is next to godliness. And that's something that I practice, as well as she goes to church, so she should practice. That's just how I feel, and that's what I said. And what you're showing your children is that they don't have to pick up after themselves. They don't have
They're
to,
being conditioned. They're being conditioned.
Yeah. And I'm not in agreement with that. I love my grandchildren. My grandchildren love me. They still will sneak and get on the phone with my oldest granddaughter, who's she's 15, get on, Facebook or whatever that new thing is, and talk and say, hi, grandma, or they'll sneak and do that. So I know that she said, hey, block your grandma on your phones, and that's fine. She'll come around just like she has. But the thing about it is that we're not going to do the guilt trip thing, because
well, she's hurting the children more. If that's her true instruction to her children, she's hurting her children more than she's helping them by not allowing them to have anything to do with it, unless there's something destructive that you're doing with the children, which from our conversations, I don't see that or detect that right now. So that's one thing. But but if you're not destroying them in any way or hurting them in any way, that's going to backfire on her when one day the children get old enough to start to discern these circumstances on their own without being prodded by someone else, their mom or father or whomever. And they'll get old enough and they'll say, grandma didn't do it a lot. And now we see and understand. And we think you're wrong, mom, because you ostracized grandma and you put her away from us and you blocked her out of our lives. Well, we needed that influence, that input. We needed that person who was trying so hard to be a part of this. I'm not saying you're the eternal victim either, but I am saying that's what most people in life want. They want to have a direct line of communication to the people with whom they're most involved and most care about. And I think that's something that you're missing with them right now in its fullest context. And I'm sure that must hurt you. And it's not for the cry, but you sometimes have to cry it out and get it out of your system. It's not really your daughter's fault. It is your fault for being in a circumstance, but it's more a situational problem. Just need to be that declination constant needs to be worked on. So all those years of separation and split can start bringing you back onto your original course using whatever that constant is. And that constant in this particular case is communication. Your declination constant is 17 degrees off in communication, and what it should be 0, but it's 17% or 17, I'm sorry, degrees off in direction. So we have to get you back there. And there's only a few ways you can do that. But I think your most productive way to get online is continue speaking truth. No matter how ugly it is, no matter how directed it is or to whom it's directed or why, you have to make your point clear and don't change it. If it's based on principle, you can violate anything in life. You can violate anything, but the moment you violate your own principles or the principles you live by, like a godliness and cleanliness principle, if you violate your own principle, then that circumstance will even get more. Now they can be hypocritical in their statements and still have value in how they tell you you don't matter in their lives because you're violating it yourself. So they can continue to do what they do with you and be a hypocrite about it because you violated or you let them off the hook. Don't let them off the hook. You love your daughter, am I correct?
Yeah, very much so.
Don't let off the hook. This is not tough love. This is not when I'm just going to kick you out the house and just forget you and see you later. I really think that kind of tough love is just pretty much stupid, but that's what some people have value in that. I think that's just ridiculous to denigrate somebody and kick them on the street and hope they make it and then say, well, if I hadn't kicked you out, you'd what, blah, blah, blah. Maybe perhaps your grandchildren see something in you and the direction you're taking with your daughter, their mom. And they like that more than what their mom is doing. And maybe they'll grow up and find the new chapter of your life as their beacon of how they want to be when they get older. And not necessarily living with multiple loads of laundry and roaches and other things that come with that. Maybe they don't want to live that way, but they have no say in the matter now. So it's not just you that's being affected. And it's not just the kids being affected by not being around their grandma. It's, the conditioning that they're undergoing right now as children, because they're very impressionable. Children are so impressionable. Whatever is happening and their mom can do, or their dad can do, or the people they most care about can do, they feel they can do too. Because that's I think, animal in the animal kingdom, especially man, that's how we operate. We're all conditioned into our environment. And sometimes we're psychologized into our environment as well, where we're not only being conditioned, but the psychology that goes behind the poor upkeep and the unclean area and all those things, that making that okay in their minds and when in their touch and their smell, then as life ensues and they'll continue it'll get worse for them. Their declination constants will be off based on what it is that their lives or past could have, would have, should have been. That's what norm therapy is all about. It's not about you having my normal. It's about you having your normal. It's about us finding your normal. And once you find your normal and you maintain your normal, other people, your daughter, your grandchildren, and everyone else, they have no option but to change or to adjust themselves to you, because you're now that standard bearer. You're that rock. You're that median divider that separates those roads. You say you go left, you go right, and people will do it. They will circumnavigate around you. And this is what you want as a grandmother, the matriarch of the family. So you're on the right path. You just can't argue it,
Yeah.
you know.
I
And when I'm sorry, you got to speak up just a little.
I was uh I was just thinking back, like all the stuff that she left. She just took a little bit of stuff and left, and my sons and my husband packed things up in bags. Well, they weren't going to separate through the garbage and everything, so they packed it all up in a bag. There's 9 bags in there, and she can come and get them, and then she can sift through them. They shouldn't have to sift through whatever. So it's all packed up just like it was and out in the garage. So if she doesn't come and get it, I gave her till trash night. It's going out.
That's
And
me. Would you like to know what I would do? As horrible as it may sound,
what?
in life, if you want somebody to do something, I learned this early on when I was in special forces. I joined special forces when I was just turning 18 years old. So I really didn't know how to be a real man until I entered into special forces. And that's when back in the day you can go that early. But what I would teach you, and I would teach them, is if you want to make a true effect, that which a person is lacking, provide them. Your daughter's lacking in that social grace within a household and skill set to maintain those bags, those 9 bags, in such a way that they would be, cared for, like folded and cleaned and prepared and sifted through. That very action you don't want to do to her, she will use it, or do for her, will use it against you and say, look, you couldn't even help me with that. And she'll make it your fault. When you relieve a person, and I'm not saying abuse yourself, I'm not saying just be somebody's walking doormat. I'm not even saying people please. I'm saying for your own peace of mind, because it's not just her you're talking to. You're talking to her children, your grandchildren, when you're talking to her. Whatever you do, it's affecting not only you and your daughter, but it's also affecting them. And they need to see that the measures you take are productive, proactive, and not reactive. Proactive, and more importantly, that it's from a point of caring and kindness and love. So through all aridity and harm and danger and uncleanliness and anything else that ever happens in their lives as it pertains to you, they need to see you being, forgive me for breathing and saying this, but you being stellar in these moments where everybody else degrade themselves and each other. They need to see you as that beacon of hope and that light. Because once your standard is invoked in their brain housing group as a standard they can live with and they like and they get it, and they don't feel that their grandmother is being used or hurt or abused, because out of love and out of that responsibility as matriarch, out of that responsibility, I would not put 9 bags in the garage, me personally. I would, as hard as work, as tired as you are, as unfair as it is, all the reasons why we don't do that, I think those should be the reasons why you do. You set a standard for your relationship, but you have to do it through leading by example. That's what I was about to say about special forces. Forget what I say, forget what I think I want to do, forget what I'm suggesting, do it. In any company I've ever been involved or owned or any other kind of way, I know, I don't want to say everything about what everyone's doing, but I have a great idea of every level of operation, from president and CEO on down to the guy who sweeps the floor. I know their job. And I know it well, because the better I know their job, the better I can direct them. The better I can find out what our actual capabilities are, and what we and where we can win and where we'll lose, and where we'll make gains and where we'll make losses. I know where it is because I understand it and I've lived it and I've learned it. You have to do the same thing. There's more to being a grandmother than a title and love. I love my grandkids. I have a great title. I'm the grandma. There's a lot more to it. Not that you wouldn't have done it had you not been in prison, because you were definitely on the path to greatness before you hooked up with your dad. You, as a young person, you were on a path to great. Your life was a model life. So the left turn or the right turn that you took that got you onto a different and a worse path, your declination constant with that circumstance of self of who you used to be as a younger person, that's off too by so many degrees. So you have to figure out where your life not went wrong, because it's not about good and bad. You know, it went right and went wrong. No, it's about useful, where stuff started to be useless in your life and stuff started to be useful, or stuff started to be criminal instead of legal. So if you put it in the real terms that you actually experience, instead of glossing over them saying, oh, that was a bad time, oh, that hurt so much, oh, instead of that, look at it from a realistic point of view. I think you'll find more comfort for yourself, but you'll also find clarity. You'll find that it's easier to call something, you know, that you lacked, like the civil understanding of following your household rules, those rites of passages of, you know, I'm going to prom, or that you missed or didn't fully participate, or I'm on my period that you missed and wasn't there for, or I no longer want to play with dolls. I think I want to have a boyfriend. You missed all of it. And no one would care about your children more than you. No one. There's no one on the planet that will care about your children more than you. Even if you're ill-equipped to do anything about it or help your children or even be involved in their lives, no one will ever have that connection much or stronger than you. And if they do have it, it's a version of what they should have had with you. So you're still that benchmark, because you not only become the idea that failed for them. From your children, they think you failed. Let's be clear about that. Not all of them, but not all of them. Not all of them. They don't fully believe it, but they know you're on the right path to something. So they're sitting back watching to see what happens, because they pin their lives against that. But not only that you failed, that's not what they're just looking at. They want to see how they fix their lives through, because they're all accustomed to emulating you. They're all accustomed to following you. All their paths are you, except for the uncleanliness. But since you weren't there, that's your lack of having been there. That pretty much is the reason why that occurred. And you have to accept that up front. I think you do. What can you do to make those 9 bags go away? Because all you're doing is sending them a message. I'm going to antagonize you. You couldn't do it, but let me show you how. You teach a person to fish. You don't tell them how to fish. You teach them to fish, and then they'll reap the benefit of teaching. But they can never, ever learn anything unless the people who they're depending on can show them how to do it and set a standard for them. And maybe had those many households she's been in, I'm making no excuse for her, because I cannot stand anything I can't even walk into my kitchen and cook unless I completely clean the kitchen first. Anyone who knows me knows that. I cannot even walk in there, and if there's a cup on the counter, I'll clean all the counters. I'll wipe the dish. Listen, I will dry out the sink, dry it out just to turn the water on. And that's not OCD. It's just I'm this way. You know, there's certain things you have to do to set a standard. So when it's repeated by you, and that repetitive nature of doing it and conditioning people to see that you do that, whether it's washing dishes, whether it's helping a person clean their room, or sifting through the roaches, or sifting through the garbage, or not 9 bags, maybe 2 bags. And then maybe 4 boxes of folded clothes. Treat them with care and kindness, and give gratitude for having the opportunity to help somebody be better. I guarantee you 10,000 times over Sunday, they're going to appreciate that more than anything else. And they'll never forget it. They may say, forgive me for saying, they may say, that bitch, I'm glad she did do it. I'm not even going to call and thank her. But people have what they call a conscience. And over time, as you wear on that conscience, Bobbi, that will change. What do you think about that thought?
I don't know about undoing all the bags, but I might I might do a couple. I guess I'm not gonna commit to all of them.
We got to start somewhere.
But
somewhere.
But I might do a couple that I know has got the clothes in it.
Important.
I offered to do the laundry, and it's really not for her. It's for my grandkids.
And you got
And
it.
and
TikTok.
you know, like I said, and I'll put their gifts in there, because I knew they needed clothes, and that's what they got mostly from me. So,
Absolutely.
or I could just replace the bags with clothes that I know that they needed, and get rid of the ones that were probably going to be hand me downs and too small anyway, and they could just all start with fresh outfits.
I hope
You know,
so. I mean, because what you're showing her is I'm going to, in terms of good or bad this time, I'm going to be better than that. I'm not going to be like you think I should be, like a bitch with you or mad with you or hurt you or not see your kids enjoy. I'm gonna be a better person than that. And I'm gonna live with a higher standard. Because it's not that you have low standards, Bobbi. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think you have low standards at all. I just think you don't have any standards when it comes to these kinds of relationships and communications. And you know, the number one problem in every marriage, every work relationship, every school relationship, every relationship in the world, the number one problem is always communication. So if you're communicating like a leader, and you do have that leadership personality, if you're communicating like that, Bobbi, and they see you as an authority, the matriarch of the family, but you have a warm heart, excuse me, and you have a discipline about yourself that makes sense for them, that they understand that they need to adopt that discipline or they're out. They get it. But if you're operating like this with them all the time and it's consistent and you don't fly off the handle and you don't give ultimatums, when you give an ultimatum to somebody, normally that means one thing: you've exhausted every other measure in life to have made that situation a good one. So when you finally, I remember someone asked me some years ago, should I divorce my husband? And he was doing some pretty bad things. And my advice, different from all of her friends, her family, her buds, her coworkers, everybody told me, get rid of this guy. Go, he's a dog. He's God, blah, blah. And I told her, I said, once you exhaust every single measure you can to make that situation work, once you do all the things you can, then when you've exhausted all of those things, then, and you have to start with forgiveness. But once you exhausted all those measures, then you can comfortably walk away because in your heart and mind, they're now coincidental. They know the same thing. You can walk away and not look back because you have done everything you could do. Not just you got frustrated and intolerant and you let it go. And that's the way most people do not deal with each other. They don't exhaust every measure they can to keep that circumstance or that situation going and get the best out of it, the higher results. That's what you failed at your whole life, because going to prison is just you faulting to get the best out of a circumstance and not to go to prison in the first time, like you went to crime instead of to school. Or maybe school wasn't it. Maybe you could do a hustle that wouldn't provide you having to do some of the time that you did for some of the charges that you experienced. Maybe you could have done something, different. Maybe with that same cunning and agility and mathematical skill and calculating that you use in robbing people, you could use the same thing in building something.
The right way.
There you go. And you have all those skills. I mean, you can go out and make money when most people see, oh, I got to live under the bridge. You're like, no, I'm getting that house over there. That's how you think. And you get it. I mean, people who have jobs and education and good families and friends who have been abused or hurt in their lives, and it stops them from doing great things. You know how many people cannot do what you do as a norm? They can't think beyond the pain. They cannot think or react beyond solution. They get in a set of circumstances because they grew up in these bubbles. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm an independent, I'm a country girl, I'm a city boy. They grew up in all these little bubbles, and none of these bubbles are connected. And then you step back like you do in a very cunning, sometimes conniving way. And you look at, well, I see all these separate bubbles. I have opportunity here. I can go right there. I can get this here done. You look at everything from a 20,000-foot view first. That's one of your skills. Start using that for yourself instead of against you. And that's why you look at your daughter from a 20,000-foot overview. What I'm telling you is not to admonish you, trick you, hurt you. No. My objective in this particular case, and I wanted to talk more about it, and we will on our next session, but all that time you spent away caused that rift, that divide, that incongruent declination constant. It just went. The more time went, the further it went away. Here's you, here are they, over here. And they're waiting for you to do this. That's what they're waiting for. Remember,
they fight me tooth and nail. They fight me tooth and nail. Like,
they should. And they should fight you, and you should take it on the chin because you can. Bobbi, you're a tough chick. You're not some weakling. And even if you were a weakling, you still have to learn to take it on the chin. You take it on the chin until they see that you taking it on the chin don't bother them at all. When they see like, oh my God, that doesn't bother grandma. She can take it like that and still be loving and kind, but still take no crap from us. Yeah, we can handle that. Let them say those things that they've been building up inside of themselves for 20 years, 15 years. Let them say those things. Let them have their say. Let them say, Mom, Grandma, maybe not your grandkids, but your children. Let them say to you, because I think there should always be something in every household is called respect. You give them a way to speak and speak their heart and tell them, but don't let them cross a boundary where they disrespect you while doing it. Now, if they got something clear to say, then you can teach them that too by you being that way. As soon as they see how you talk, they're going to just copy you. They're going to mimic you. They're going to emulate you. That's what they'll do because you're the matriarch. Whether you like that title or that role or not, that's who you are. And it's not transitory. You will forever be their grandma. Forever. You will forever be their mom. Whether they feel that you are their mom like somebody else who may have raised them or someone else who treated them like that. That still does not negate your being their mom. So you're going to be okay in that regard if you start living that role. Literally. I mean, a lot of matriarchs in families, especially grandmas, have abused the family where I don't like your husband. I don't like the way your kids act. I don't like it. When you do that, you denigrate a parent for how they treat their kids. You got to know that normally there's a mirror that you're missing because your kids are normally mirrors of you. And if you're denigrating your children, you're denigrating yourself, who will in turn denigrate their kids and so forth and so on. And that cycle will never end. And your great, 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 great grandchildren will be abused because you didn't stop it when you had a chance way back in the day, which is now for you. That's the point I'm trying to make. Just change up a little bit and stop being so rigid in areas where you don't have to be rigid.
And I think that's what I need to learn. I actually got a book that I'm going to read. It's called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And it looked pretty good to me, and it was recommended by my pastor. So
we're all imperfect. My answers may work for just me and my kids. I doubt it. I think they work for a lot of people. But that's Michael Gibson's bubble. Yeah. You get it? Yeah. Yours is yours. And whatever you do to nurture you is always good. Always good. So through knowledge, but remember, there's something about you that's so important, Bobbi, that I see and I've seen since the beginning. And it's consistent. And that's this. Whatever you put into you, you know what you want out of it. Always know what you want to get out of something before you get into it. Have an idea, an inkling of what you want to get out of it. That book may be the best book in the entire world, and it may be exactly what you need to read. And all the podcasts and the other things you've been doing to ameliorate or better your life and make you a stronger human being, that may all be great. But here's the one declination constant I want to remind you of to keep you back on course, is that until you live it, it really don't mean squat. Start living it. Don't just read it and go, that sounds nice, that's good, and oh my God, and blah. That's all. Oh, I read a book the other day, and have a good and wonderful and intelligent conversation about it with someone.
You have to apply it.
But to apply it, exactly, and use it. That's it. Live it. And then talk about how great it is once you've applied it to your life and it's made sense to you. And it not only, and I think more importantly, that it makes sense to others around you. Because they don't have to agree with you. Don't look for agreement. Don't look to be right or correct. Just look to be you.
I'm going to be wrong.
Exactly. No, well, no, you're not. It's not because you're going to be wrong. Don't look to be correct, but just look to be effective. Just look to be productive. Exactly. So long as you change. Remember, you're not doing this for your grandkids. You're not doing it for your daughter. You're not doing it for anybody. You're doing it for you. So you should not even care unless you're hurting someone with your behavior. You should not even care what they think, because this is how you get better. Once you're better, then they see you're better, and they can't move you off of your new stone statue monument. They cannot move this monument of Bobbi anymore. Once they see that, they now have to start like a lighthouse in the roughest seas. Those waves just make it around, and it'll cover the whole lighthouse. But the lighthouse, when the waves go down, is still standing there. And that's who you need to be. And you need to be consistent about it. Consistency will breed any kind of relationship you want. When people see that you're just that way, no matter what people say about you, what they write about you, what they think about you, what they understand about you, once they see that that's you, they're going to believe that over anything else anyone can say or do, or against you, about you, or whatever they're doing to bring you down. You don't have to worry about that. This is not people pleasing. Remember, helping somebody and getting gratitude out of something is an okay thing, because you'll feel better about it. But if you help someone to the point where you hurt, then that's people pleasing. And you're not a people pleaser. You'll, oh, screw it, I'll just let it go because I'm not dealing with it right now. You're one of those people sometimes. You are.
Yeah.
That's not always healthy.
Not always, but I'm not always like that.
Okay. No, but at sometimes a pivotal time, I'm only looking at my benchmark for this conversation is 9 garbage bags.
Yeah.
And remember, 9 garbage bags is I wouldn't even try to get a couple. I try to do half. Why? Because with a little bit more focus and just a little bit more time, there could have been 9 stacks of clean clothes and toys and separated goods and sifted garbage out in a can, free of bugs and dirtiness. It could have been that. And it's not your way of saying, I'm kissing your ass to your daughter. That's not your way. It's saying, I love you and I want you to do better and be better. But the only way I can have you do better and be better is to show you. You expect highness out of me. Here's some highness for you. This is what it looks like. And it's not about you doing anything wrong by doing that. You're the grandma. That's the only point I'm making.
That's one thing I always made sure. I always made sure that they had like clean clothes for the next day, even if it was washing the same outfit every day. Every day the kids went to school clean, with the clean clothes.
I'm sure.
I went to school every day with clean clothes.
I'm sure.
And so, I feel like they should have that privilege too. Not everybody has that.
But they lacked the consistency because you weren't there most of the time. So where you gave them clean clothes and made sure they had that environment and the people cleaning up for them, that's all great. But
no, I'm talking about my grandkids right now.
Okay.
Just since they've been with me, they've had clean clothes,
So they understand that responsibility because you're more solid with them on that. And they get you as grandma, like this is our beacon forward. So we're going to do what this grandma say to us, not like we would normally treat other people. Correct?
Yeah.
All right. And because there's a rift between you and your daughter, that message isn't being relayed. It's like a broken circuit in a light switch. If you go to flick it, it's not going to work if it's untethered. It's just not going to work. You have to get in there and reconnect that switch. And that switch is off between you and your daughter. Because if it were on, then that current of what you want would flow right through your daughter, right to her children. But she's cut it off not only with you, but she's cut it off with them as well. And those are the two areas that need to be repaired and focused on first. I think once you repair those, she can't repair them. She does not have the wisdom. She does not have the authority because you are the matriarch. You have the authority. Whenever you ask anybody to do anything in life, Bobbi, you must give them two things. You must give them authority to do it, and then also make them responsible for it. Whether it's at work or at home, you got to give them both, the authority and the responsibility. And at last, once they have assumed the authority and the responsibility that you want them to have, you then have to give them something else that most people don't even think about giving them. And that ruins their lives normally. And that's you have to give them autonomy. You have to make them do, now that they have the authority and responsibility, you have to make them autonomous. You have to make them the people that can make these decisions for themselves and let them make the better decisions because you have given them the authority and the responsibility, and you've shown them how to do it right. Now you need to give them the autonomy to be the kinds of people that you want or that you've tried to align their lives to become. That's how that works. And that's why we all fail at this because we don't know when to let go or when to stop talking. Some people say the worst things because they just don't shut up. They just don't stop talking. And simple gesture of being quiet sometimes will give you more reflection and wisdom on that circumstance you're in. So you get that immediate feedback you need to make better decisions as you're moving forward. And as you're talking to someone so they don't feel like you're beating down on them because the person will shut down. They'll just shut down. And you'll lose all perspective on whatever that gain could have been had you just been quiet, let them vent, but lead them through that effort. You're a smart woman. I'm telling you, I know people like you all over the world. They're so smart that they hurt themselves. And because you'll do what most people won't. You'll risk some things that most people won't ever risk. So your life is always out on a limb. But that's still, let's say that's the life of an entrepreneur too. You got to risk everything to get everything. If you risk little, you get little. You risk a lot, you get a lot. You've been doing that your whole life. Transform that, change it into something more useful for you, and everyone will see it. And whatever your reaction to anything is, save it. No more reactions. Respond to circumstances. Today's circumstance with your daughter is 100% your fault, but it's also 100% in your control to repair without losing face, without losing any kind of respect. Matter of fact, gaining respect. And when you get
responsibility.
Absolutely. You get exactly because you're the one who's meeting it out. You're telling people, I'm giving you the authority. So you're making them an extension of you. You giving you the authority to be okay with me and our family and our dynamic and our guidelines and how we want to live and prosper and love and grow and communicate. All of those things you grant authority to everybody to do. And then you have to have the same bridge of communication back to them. Sometimes when I talk to my ex, the first thing she wants to call me is every kind of negative and bad name before we even have a conversation. I simply hang up. I don't even, if it means that I don't talk to my kids for a month, I hang up. I won't tolerate disrespect, nor will I disrespect her. See, it works both ways. So you have to incorporate some type of balance in your life from which you operate daily. And you show everybody the exact same consistency, from your husband to the people you work with, grandchildren, children, daughters, doesn't matter. Show them all who you are and maintain who you are 24/7, no matter what. And you'll get comfortable with you quickly. Most people don't like they say New Year's resolutions. I'm going to do all this and blah. You know why people never make their New Year's resolution? You want to know the real reason? Most people, if not all, don't make that resolution because they don't have any consistency. They don't have any discipline. You have to have both. You have to be consistent and disciplined. You have to say, okay, I'm going to lose 20 pounds consistently. I'm going to do these things every day. Discipline, whether I like it or not, I'm going to get it done. This is my standard. Most people don't have the consistent level of consistency and discipline. So you find that consistency and discipline within yourself. And whatever it is that you need to accomplish, Bobbi, you will. You've been doing it your whole life. You've just been getting the bad results. It's been effective. If you use the same energy and thought process and cunning and all of that, and had you use that in your life, you'd probably be sitting on Forbes magazine right now. That's not even an exaggeration. Most of us would be, but we don't do that. And we don't check ourselves. You're checking yourself. What do you think you're here doing? You are checking you. That's a powerful thing to do. Most people can't stand checking themselves because they have thin skin and they have to be right. And they got to start crying, or they got to start screaming, or they got to start fighting, or they got to be antagonistic, or they got to do something to cover the fact that they're just weak and scared. You're not weak and you're not scared. That puts you ahead of 95 or 90% or 96% of the people on the planet. You're way ahead of the game. Where you lose is the decision-making process. You make the wrong decisions because your declination constant is off. Get realigned with real world, real life, the real you from that I was a preteen girl. Get realigned with her. Make that declination constant start coming here. Once you do that, now we have something really to work with within you, and people will emulate you. They won't just emulate you, Bobbi. They will blindly follow you because they know the path that you're on is safe, is secure, is smart, is well thought out. You have a plan and you're following it. You're consistent. Even if you fail at some of the points in your plan, which we all do, even if you fail at some of the points, they'll still see that you tried to make that point and you didn't just quit. You went to the next one and said, okay, that didn't work. Let's go over here. That's what they see. That's what you want people to see. And whether they see it or not, as a caveat, cares. So long as you're consistent with you and you're taking outside advices and you're reading those books and you're nurturing yourself, you're educating yourself. So long as you're going and you're living that which you're being educated upon. When you do that, now you got something. No one can test it. No one can hurt you. It's impossible for someone to hurt you if you're based on principles. It may feel bad, but they can't hurt you. And I mean hurt in a form of destruction or stopping you. No one can stop you but you, Bob. No one. And I think you're on a great path. Fold more than 2 bags and you'll see everybody's lives get better. Everyone's lives get better as a result. And it'll be you that's the catalyst and the reason why. Close us out before I close the audience out. Close me out. What do you want to know more about anything else? Tell me. What is the one thing you want to know more about?
One thing I want to know more about is the way that my heart feels when I know what is right versus what I want to do.
That's probably one of the best answers I've ever heard when I've asked that question all over the world for the past 30 years. Listen to me carefully. Stay right there. Remember, if you read the Bible, read Romans chapter 7, the entire chapter. And it's about the good and evil within you that make those decisions with you and what prods you this way and that way. And you'll find that which you would not do, you do, and that which you would do, you wouldn't. Why? Because you always will have 2 spirits within you warring for your soul all the days of your life. So read the entire Romans chapter, but really verse 22, I think from 21, 22 somewhere. Read from there and you'll see what I'm talking about and start living that. And that'll help you between the battle with good and evil. It'll help you. You won't always make the wrong decisions, but you won't always make the right ones either. But you have to make sure that both of those outcomes are something you can live with. And with that being said, Thank you, Bobbi, this week. Thank you all who are listening right now. And if you want to subscribe, go to normtherapy.com or goaro.org. And I want our disclaimer that we're not therapists in a traditional sense, anywhere licensed outside of normtherapy.com. But we're working on getting that licensure as well as getting this as a accredited course in most universities around the world. Thank you very much, and I appreciate all of your candidness, Bobbi. You're an amazing human being, and thank you. See you next week, okay?
See ya.